Hey, so excited to have you with us for part 3 of How Not to Be a Jerk. Man, it's been a lot of fun this series, and to be honest, what I've loved is just hearing stories that people have been sharing with me and talking with me and embracing some of the language that we're using as maybe couples or friends are pointing at each other and saying things like, man, don't be pushy, don't be harsh, stop being a jerk. So it's really, really great to see this language sort of being utilized right across the life of our church. And the reason I just want to pause again at the start of today and just talk about why we're doing this series, How Not to Be a Jerk. And the reason we're doing it is because of one of the most profound things that Jesus said. He was with his disciples. It was towards the end of Jesus' life. And Jesus says, a new command I give you, love one another. Now that part's not new. We've been told right throughout the scriptures, always love one another. But this is the part that's new. As I have loved you, as Jesus has loved you, so you must love one another. And this is where Jesus really lifts the bar, because Jesus loved us so sacrificially, and he calls us to love each other that same way. And by this level of love, everyone will know that you are my disciples. The mark that we are a follower of Christ should be the way that we love one another. And if we want to be people that are really living this out, and if we're following Christ, we really should fully desire to live this out, because this really is at the core of the Christian faith. Do you know what really helps that? It really helps when you and I don't act like jerks, because it's really easy to love someone who's easy to love, but when someone's always acting like a jerk, it's a lot harder to love them the way that we're called to love them. So if we can all take some personal responsibility to not be jerks, do you know what? We can live this out a whole lot easier. So we've been working through this series on how not to be a jerk. And through this series, we've really encouraged people to look in the mirror, not out the window. Because as we're told, when you're pointing at someone this way, you've got one finger pointing at them, but 3 coming back at you. And it's often easier to see the jerk in someone else, yet what we have to know is there is a jerk that lurks in all of us. And so that's why this has sort of been our theme picture for the series, because just as an artist can paint on a canvas, they can choose what colors they're using, what brush strokes they want to use, what technique, all of that sort of stuff as they paint their picture. You and I have got the ability to paint the story of our life, and we need to ask ourselves, what sort of life do we want to paint? What sort of story do we want to tell? And today we're actually going to talk about, I believe that this is probably the best and the most powerful message we're going to do in this series, because this is the one that I think causes the most rift in relationship, the most broken relationships, just right across the spectrum of relationships, whether it's people who are in marriages, whether it's friends, whether it's parent and kids, or whether it's colleagues at work or business partners. What we're going to talk about today, I think all of us could raise our hand and say, man, I've had a relationship that's completely broken or has been somewhat splintered because of the things we're going to talk about today. And so I'm going to just quickly tell you what they are now, and we'll dive into them in a little bit more detail. But really what we're talking about today is this idea of gossiping and talking about people behind their backs and sharing secrets that aren't ours to share. And now I'm not going to ask you to write something in the comments, because, man, I think there would just either end up with so many comments or things could just get really awkward really quickly. But I think it's probably fair to say that all of us have now got a fractured relationship, or maybe no relationship, because of some level of gossiping where we found out what someone was saying about us behind our backs, and the relationship's just never been the same since. Or maybe we shared a secret with someone and they went and shared that with other people, and then just that trust broke and relationship broke with it. And also, that hasn't just happened because other people have done that to us. If we're going to be real honest here, and I hope we are, we have to probably just look at ourselves a bit, because there have been relationships in our lives that have been broken or disjointed because you and I have said something behind someone's back, or because you and I have broken trust with other people. It's just unfortunately something that's so common in the world in which we live today. And that's why I think today's message is so important, because it really is so countercultural to the world in which we live. In fact, what I want you to see is what it says in Proverbs. Now, Proverbs is just the most incredible book in the Bible, and it's just got so much wisdom in it. But this just reminds us how powerful and how prevalent this is. It says, a troublemaker plants seeds of strife. That's the second part I want us to focus on. Gossip separates the best of friends, or I could say the closest of sisters, or the tightest of brothers, or gossip separates the team in the workplace. Whatever it is, gossip separates even the best of friends. And we've all experienced this. And so the jerk move that we're going to be talking about today is dishonouring. This idea of dishonouring people. Because I think when you break down what that really is, it really does come back to gossiping and how we talk about people, that we dishonour people. And I think there's two key ways in which we dishonour people. The first way is we dishonour others by talking about them. Now that doesn't sound like I fully explain it. We dishonour others by talking about them. And I don't mean I'm talking about someone in a positive sense. We dishonour others when we talk about them in a negative sense. When we have conversations about how someone's always so critical, or how someone's so annoying, or how someone's always getting things wrong, or how someone's a bad parent, or how someone's whatever it may be, lazy. We dishonour people when we talk about them. And what we want to do is figure out how we can turn this around. But I think one way that relationships get strained is because we dishonour people that we're in relationship with by talking about them. And the second way that we really dishonour people is we dishonour others when we break confidence. When someone tells us a secret, or when someone tells us and trusts us with something vulnerable or something important, and we break that confidence by taking that secret, by taking that story, by taking that account and sharing it with others. Again, if we look at what Proverbs says, it says, a gossip betrays a confidence, but a trustworthy person keeps a secret. A gossip betrays a confidence. So really, it's really easy for you and I to be dishonouring people. And when we talk about those two things, talking about someone, man, we see that come and play out so often in our culture in terms of the relationships and the breaking of confidence. Again, it's so easy for us to pass on what someone else has told us without filtering out what's going on. But what we're doing in this series is we're learning how not to be a jerk. So if we're not going to be a jerk, what sort of person are we going to be? We're going to be someone who honours. You and I, we're going to be people who honour those around us. We're not going to dishonour them. We're not going to talk about them in negative senses behind their back. We're not going to break confidence. No. Because we're not here to dishonour people. We're going to honour people. Even though everyone around us might fall into a more of a dishonouring type culture, we're going to be different. We're going to stand out because we're going to make the choice to honour people. Now, what does it mean to honour people? What it means is we're going to honour people by talking to them. Rather than talking about people, we're going to talk to people. If I've got a problem with something you've done, or you're engaging in a behaviour that's hurting me or harming me, rather than me going and telling everyone else about you, I'm going to have the courage and the confidence to come and talk to you. See, how many of us have got into trouble because someone's done something to us, someone's hurt us, someone's offended us, and rather than going and addressing it with them, we talk to everyone else about them. And we don't want to be that sort of person. If we're going to honour people, we're going to talk to someone, we're not going to talk about them. We're going to have the courage and we're going to just go to them and say, hey, I just want to talk to you about something. When you did this, I felt this, and now I'm confused, or whatever it may be. We're going to actually approach them rather than telling everyone else. We don't need to tell everyone. We're going to go straight direct. And I just think how many people problems would just be absolutely minimized if when you and I got hurt, when you and I got offended, when something happened to us, we went straight to the person and had the conversation rather than talking to all of the people around them. So let's look at what Jesus says about this. Jesus says that if another believer sins against you, go privately, go quietly, go individually, and point out the offense. If the other person listens and confesses it, you have won that person back. So when someone offends us, when someone sins against us, when someone wrongs us, what's our responsibility is to go privately. Jesus doesn't say go publicly. Don't jump on your Facebook page and write about all the bad things they've been doing. Don't go and complain to all your other co-workers about how this person never carries any slack and is super lazy and shouldn't be on the team. He says, no, I want you to go privately to them and I want you to point out the offense. And the reason this is so important, the reason this is so powerful, as I've already explained in this series, is that oftentimes when someone offends us or when someone does something to hurt us, they often don't do it intentionally but accidentally. Do you know that's true? Because when you've hurt someone, when you've offended someone, you know that oftentimes you haven't done it to intentionally hurt them or to offend them, but just accidentally you've offended or hurt them. And so that's why it's so important to go back and talk about this personally, because then it can just be dealt with there and there. The challenge comes when you've offended me and I have a huddle with a whole lot of others and tell them about how you've offended me and you've done all of this stuff and it's blah, blah, blah. And then I come back to you and we have a conversation about it and I realize, oh man, that was just miscommunication. You didn't intend it. Okay, I didn't quite hear that properly. Okay, man, I very rarely go back to that huddle and apologize and say, hey guys, you know how we had that thing? Yeah, that was actually wrong. It was all my fault. I'm an idiot. And the reason I don't do that with that circle is because, hey, I don't like to label myself an idiot very often. And so we just don't do that very often. And Jesus makes it so clear. If another believer sins against you, go privately and point out their offense. If that person listens and confesses it, you have won the person back. Can I honestly tell you, and I really, really want you to hear this, is if people just did this one thing, the amount of relational conflicts in their life would just fall dramatically. I have seen this lead to so much brokenheartedness, so much hurt, so much fractured relationships that it really breaks my heart. And I just beg and urge you that if you're, when someone offends you, and someone is going to offend you, when someone hurts you and someone is going to hurt you, that you take this on board and you go and live it out, because it's going to make your life and their life so, so much better. And just this is true, right? The biggest hurt, the biggest pain that we get in life is generally relationship breakdowns. When relationships break, when they get fractured, that's what causes the most angst in us, the most frustration, the most the most sleepless nights, the thing that just irritates in our mind and grinds over and over and over, causes the heavy hearts when those relationships break. And if you and I are willing to do this one step, can I tell you that so much of that pain will just go away? So much of that frustration will disappear around us if we're willing to do what Jesus says here. But Jesus doesn't stop here. He says, but if you are unsuccessful. See, Jesus knows sometimes when you approach someone, you're going to hit that brick wall, you're going to be unsuccessful. Take one or two others with you and go back again so that everything you say may be confirmed by 2 or 3 witnesses. So what Jesus is encouraging us to do here is, if we get that brick wall, if we don't get anywhere, then we go and get a couple of others who can come with us to help the other person realize the weight of the offense or what they're doing is wrong. Because oftentimes when I turn up and I say, hey, when you said or when you did this, I felt this, and it's caused me to that, and the other person can say a different perspective on it, and it can be like a he said, she said situation. But if you can take another 2 or 3 people with you that can then say, hey, when you said or did this, I too felt, or I would feel the same way as they felt, and I would have the same response or receptivity to that. It just helps people actually realize that what they're doing might be wrong. And sometimes, again, when they're coming across different than how they think they are, because they're not intentionally trying to hurt or to offend, but they're just perceived, or the way that they're coming across and being perceived is different than what they expected. When a few people can say that, the light bulb can start to go off and go, maybe there is something wrong with the way that I'm delivering or the way that I'm acting in this. And so Jesus is very, very clear. Go privately yourself. Don't talk about someone. No, go and talk to them. But only if that conversation doesn't go well, then go and talk to a couple of others and get them to come with you so you can talk to them again. And this is the principle that I want us to get. We are going to be people who don't talk about others, but we're going to be people who talk to people. We're not going to spread gossip about what someone's doing or talk about all the bad things about that person. No. We're going to talk to them. A key phrase that really helped me in this space was, Clint, don't let anything come out your mouth about someone that you're not willing to say to them. Don't talk behind someone's back in a way that you never talk to their face. And that's helped me realize and clarify what's going on and what I should say when I'm talking about someone. Because again, as we said, we live in a culture where this is so normal, where relationships are often built around pointing out faults in someone or a group of people, and we never actually get to the positive side of it. That's just kind of how things often happen in our culture. And so I want to be very, very careful that I'm not saying something about someone that I would never say to them. I want to be someone who is for people, not dragging people down. I want to be known as someone who's always singing people's praises behind their back, not pointing out their faults behind their back. So let's continue. If we're going to honor people, we're also going to honor people by increasing their confidence in us. Rather than breaking people's confidence, we're going to increase their confidence in us. When someone tells us something confidential or something that's not ours to share with others, it's going to get locked in a vault. And I love the way Brené Brown talks about this. Brené Brown, if you've never read any of her books or seen any of her talks online, she is absolutely remarkable. And I encourage you to read a book of hers, to look into some of her teachings, because she is phenomenal. And when it comes to building trust, she says we want to be like a vault, that when people share something with us, it gets locked up in the vault and it doesn't come out. And she does an amazing job of breaking this down. And one example she uses is if you find out that a couple's going through a divorce and it's really, really messy, you shouldn't go and tell anyone else. Whereas in our culture, you might hear that Bob and Joe are going through a divorce and it's really messy. It's really easy when you're sitting with some others to go, hey, have you guys heard about Bob and Joe? Man, their divorce, apparently it's real nasty and it's real messy. And it creates this little gossip circle. But the reality is that's not Clint's information to share, is it? Clint shouldn't be sharing that information. That's Bob and Joe's information to share, not Clint's. So when I find that out, I want to lock it in a vault because it's not mine to pass on. I think of it this way. I think some people are vaults and some people are vomiters. Some people you can give information to and it gets locked up in the vault. Other people are vomiters. They get the information and blah, blah, blah. They're vomiting it all over town, telling everyone. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be a vomiter. I want to be a vault. I want that information to be locked up on the inside of me. And when people know that I'm the person that can hold that information, they're more likely to disclose more to me and create a stronger level of relationship because they know when I say something to Clint, that something stays with him. Or in your case, when I say something to you, I know you're going to hold it in there and it's not going to spread further. And you're not going to be someone who breaks confidence, rather you're going to be someone who increases confidence. And again, a really clear way that we can see this happen is you just got to think of what other people are saying to you. If other people are disclosing to you secrets that aren't theirs to disclose, you've then got to start have like sirens going off in the back of your head saying, hang on a minute, if they're breaking confidentiality out there, I've got to be very careful what I share with them because there's a good chance they're going to share that information elsewhere. And I think this is where this rings so true, and we need to be so careful about who we're sitting with and who we're building relationships with, because in both cases, when it comes to dishonoring people, whether we're talking about people rather than to them, or whether we're just breaking confidence, is that if we're with people who are always talking about people, it's not going to be very long until those same people are talking about you and not to you. And if you've got people who are breaking other people's confidence to you, it's not long until they're going to be breaking your confidence to someone else. So you want to be really, really careful about who you hang out with. And let me just add a couple of little tips here. Here is a saying, and I think this is so powerful. It says, everything that's said must be true. Everything that comes out of my mouth, everything that comes out of your mouth should be true. We don't want to lie ever. We want everything we say to be true. But not everything true must be said. Just because it's true doesn't mean it needs to be said. I really want to pick on Christians for a moment because one thing Christians are known for is oftentimes being jerks in the name of truth. And they'll point out and they'll go, blah, 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 blah. And they'll point out all this stuff and then they'll say, but I'm just speaking the truth. You might be speaking the truth, but you're still being a jerk. Just because it's true doesn't mean it needs to be said. I just think of how Jesus lived. And when Jesus, he met this woman at the well, and he had a little conversation with her. And in this conversation, he asked a couple of questions that helped really her see that she wasn't living a perfect life, or she was living a life quite far from perfect. But Jesus didn't point out everything that's possibly true about her. No. He just asked a couple of little questions. We don't need people to point out every truth about us, do we? I just imagine if Jesus wanted to, he could have lined people up and just spent days pointing out heaps of truth. But that's not how he operated, because not everything that's true needs to be said. I'm going to make sure everything that comes out of my mouth is true, yes, but I'm not going to say everything that's true, because not everything that's true needs to be said. So if we're not going to be a jerk, what are we going to do? We're going to honor people. We're going to refuse to dishonor others. Instead, we're going to honor them. How are we going to honor people? We're not going to talk about people negatively behind their backs. No. We're going to talk to people. And if we can't say something to them, we're never going to say it about them. We're going to honor them. We're going to make sure that whenever we're talking about someone behind their back, it's always positive. I want to be the sort of person that if I'm having a conversation with someone and you hear me use your name, you don't have to wiggle your way over closer to make sure what Clint's saying's, good, or to stand up for yourself because I'm always pulling people down around me. No. I want you to know that if you hear me talking about you and you're not part of that conversation, your natural thought will be, oh, there goes Clint just bragging on me again. There goes Clint just making me sound better than what I am. There goes Clint just speaking positively of me, because they know that in their experience with me, every time I speak of people, I'm doing all I can to be speaking positively about them. And when I've got to talk to someone about something where they've hurt me or something negative, I'm not going to talk to others about them. No. I'm going to go and I'm going to talk to them. And then secondly, I don't want to be the sort of person that breaks confidence. If you share something with me, I want to make sure it's a vault, that I'm not out vomiting that information all around town. I want it to be locked up and safe. And I want people to know. I really do. I want people to know if they share something with me that it is going to be locked up and it's not going to come out later. I'm going to do this because I want to honor people. I don't want to be a jerk that dishonors. No. I want to be someone who's always honoring people. Now just imagine with me for a moment. Dream with me for a moment. Imagine if that's what we here at Life Search were known for. Imagine if we all embrace this. That when someone hurts us or someone offends us, we're not people who go and talk all about it in groups and here, there, and everywhere. No. We go and talk to the person. That when someone trusts us enough for something sensitive, it gets put away in the vault and it stays there. Imagine what that would say to our community. Imagine what that would do for our relationships. Imagine the ease at which we'd be able to do church life so well, because you just kind of knew if someone's talking about you, they're bragging on you. That they're not pulling you down or talking negatively about you. No. They're actually building you up and lifting you up. That when you share something with someone, it's not going to go anywhere. That it's safe, it's in the vault, because they just know and they understand that, man, that information has been given to me, entrusted to me, and I don't have the right to go and pass it on to others. Before we leave, I want to give you one tip. Because someone once said to me, well, I can control all the words that come out of my mouth. And that's the cool thing about this. You and I have full control over what comes out of our mouth. They said, but Clint, well, where I find it gets difficult is if I'm in a conversation and someone starts talking to me about how negative someone is or how someone else has hurt them, or they start to betray confidence in a conversation to me. And I said, what do I do then? So what I did was I did a little bit of research. And what I want to give you is one thing you can say. And when you say this, it can completely change the trajectory of the conversation. It completely Just put the other person back, make them think about why they're talking to you. Do you want this line? I'll tell you what, you really want this line. It is a great, great line. And when you say it, you're not allowed to say it in a harsh way. You're not allowed to say it in a judgmental way or a way that looks down on someone. No, you just got to say it nicely in a really conversational tone. And what you want to say is this: why are you telling me this? Or how come you're telling me this information? Or why do I need to know this? And when you say it in a nice way, in a friendly way, it just causes the other person to think, oh yeah, why am I telling you this? Because what can happen is, so often people can try and build friendships, try and build relationships based on talking negatively about someone else, on dishonoring others. And there's a name for this. It's called common friendship or common enemy intimacy. And what can often happen is relationships can get built over a common enemy. So we get this level of intimacy built around or based around a common enemy. But that's not true intimacy. That's counterfeit. That's fake. Brené Brown says this so well. That if all our relationship is built on is a common enemy, our intimacy is not real at all. And we want to avoid that as much as we can. And the easiest way we can do that is just simply ask someone, what are you telling me this for? And that should give them enough cause just to check. And actually in saying that, what you're already then doing is building level of credibility and building confidence, because they're saying, wow, this person's trustworthy because I'm going to share a secret and they're already calling me on it. Man, this person's got to be unique. This person is very, very special. So we just say, hey, well, what are you telling me this for? And then what we want to do is follow that up with, hey, are you going to address this with the person? Or because I think the one time you can actually talk to someone about someone in that negative sense is if you're going to them for help. If you're going to them, say, hey, someone's really hurt me. Someone's really offended me. And I need to address it with them. I need to talk to them. But I just need some wisdom in how to have that conversation well. Because might be in a place where emotionally we're just right up here. And if we go into that conversation straight away, it's just going to blow up and get worse. Or maybe we just lack the tools in our tool belt to how to have that conversation or some lines to start it or to do it well. So in that situation, we often need to go to someone and just say, hey, can you help me approach this person? And what I love about this is what we often struggle with, or the reason we don't often have these conversations is because we don't have the courage in us to go and do it. We're lacking courage. And that's why we need to get that person around us to encourage us. Do you know what it means to encourage someone? It means to put courage in them. So if you go to someone, say, I need to have this conversation, what they can do is they can take some of their courage, they can put it in us, and then we can go and have that conversation. So I just encourage you. If any time someone's talking negatively about someone else, or is sharing secrets or sharing information that really isn't theirs to share, just to use that line, how come you're telling me? What are you telling me for? And then just see where that goes, because I think oftentimes that can diffuse the situation. It can make the other person realize, oh, I've slipped into a territory they probably don't want to go, and you definitely don't want them to go in, and it can just be super, super helpful. So, hey, we're not going to be a jerk. We're not going to dishonor others. Instead, we're going to honor people. And I know what we've talked about today can be quite confronting. It can sort of just be quite convicting because it's just so normal in the culture in which we live. So what I want to do is, rather than you just click off now and we finish here, I want you to take a couple of minutes. I want you to just enjoy a song and hopefully create some space. Maybe as the songs playing, you might be able to pray. You might be able to talk to God and just apologize for those times where you've dishonored others. Or maybe you can think through those lists of broken relationships and all the pain and angst that was in you then and maybe still be in you now, and ask God to bring restoration and to bring healing. And maybe you can actually use that to leverage you to say, I really want to make sure I don't go back into that pattern of dishonoring others because I know the pain and the hurt that it's caused me and the angst and the heaviness of heart that's come with it. So hey, enjoy the song and then I'll come back because I'd love to pray for you. Enjoy.
In the darkness, we were waiting without hope, without light, till from heaven you came running. There was mercy in your eyes to fulfill the law and prophets. To a virgin came the word from a throne of endless glory to a cradle in the dirt. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. To reveal the kingdom coming and to reconcile the lost, to redeem the whole creation. You did not despise the cross, for even in your suffering you saw to the other side, knowing this was our salvation. Jesus, for our sake you died. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. In the morning that you rose, all of heaven held its breath, till that stone was moved for good, for the Lamb had conquered death. And the dead rose from their tombs, and the angels stood in awe, for the souls of all who had come to the Father are restored. And the church of Christ was born. Then the Spirit lit the flame. Now this gospel truth of old shall not kneel, shall not faint. By His blood and in His name, in His freedom I am free. For the love of Jesus Christ, who has resurrected me. Oh, praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. Praise forever to the King of Kings.
Hey, all right, let me pray. Yeah, Heavenly Father, man, relationships matter so much. Nothing causes more hurt or carries more weight or seems to add a sense of heaviness that broken relationships and strained relationships do. And Father, so much of that can be prevented if we just do what we've been talking about today. If we really honor people, if we refuse to talk about them in a negative sense and only talk to them, if we just remain steadfast and make sure that we're that vault that's not sharing information that isn't ours to share, then we can just see less relationships getting strained, less relationships getting cracked, less relationships getting completely broken. And Father, I know every single person watching, and they don't want broken relationships. They don't want more hurt. They don't want more pain and more heartache. So Father, I pray you help all of us to be able to do what we need to do in this space. I really pray you'll give us the wisdom to hear what it is you're calling us to do. And then you'll really give us that courage to go and do it. I pray this in Jesus' name. Everybody said amen, amen, Amen. Hey, thank you so, so much. I look forward to seeing you back here next week for part 4 of How to Not Be a Jerk.